Welcome back, and today we're talking about the motivations for why we do what we do. Stay tuned.
The first rule of Insight Club is you don't talk about Insight Club. You do Insight Club. The second rule of Insight Club is the only assumptions we make about one another are that we all want happiness and we all want to avoid suffering. The third rule of Insight Club is you check all your other assumptions at the door. We hope these conversations will bring you insights that incite you to action. Welcome to Insight Club. Welcome back. And today we're talking about assumptions we make about why we do what we do, why other people do what they do. And I want to start with the pyramids. So my husband loves just like going down research rabbit holes and geeking out about stuff. And the other day he's like, they found these structures under some of the big pyramids in Giza. And they are like these they're spirals that go down like almost a kilometer. They go really, really deep down, and then there are cubes at the bottom of them. And
More
I've
than
just
a
seen
kilometer.
just more than a kilometer.
Yeah,
Like-
it's basically a mile.
A mile. Okay.
Yeah.
So they go like incredibly deep, and under the King's Pyramid, there are several of these structures. And I've been looking at like digital like recreations of them. And you look at them, I look at them, and I'm like, it's some kind of machinery. Like this is some kind of thing built for a purpose. And like, was it water? So Grady was pointing out, if you put water through these spirals, you could generate electricity, right? Like you could get this the coil. So there's something really complex and for a purpose going on under these structures. And I was thinking about how when I was a kid growing up, my whole life, you'd hear about the pyramids and it's like, these structures are so massive. How were they even built? And why? Like, why would somebody go to this trouble and go to this effort? And the answer that I always heard was, we don't know. It must have been something to do with religion. And I thought, I'm like, as an adult, I find that so fascinating that the assumption we make about why people would go to this trouble and just the pyramids that you see above the surface and what's happening. I mean, already you're like, that's a lot of effort. Then what's
Massive.
going on inside them? Okay, that's even more effort. And then now there's something going on beneath it. And you're like, holy cow, this is a massive undertaking, a massive building. You know, if you talk to mainstream archaeologists, they still cannot answer how these things were built, right? So it's like above and beyond what we even think was the technology at the time. And of course, there are hypotheses that do explain it that are, dismissed because they involve the assumption that there was more advanced technology than the story that we're told of human civilization. But this idea of, well, we don't know why people would do that, it must be something to do with their religion, is such a dismissive answer. And if somebody were to look at our culture and like the skyscrapers we build and the quarries and the mines and go like, oh, who knows? It was probably just some like weird religious thing they were doing. Like, why wouldn't you at least entertain the idea that people of the past had the same motivations we do, which would be things like commerce, like maybe they're manufacturing something, communications technology, right? We go to a lot of effort to put fiber optic cables like underneath oceans. Like that's something that's worthwhile to us, but we think it's only those are our values, like communication, manufacturing, those kinds of technologies, commerce, those are valuable to us. But those people, their motivation must just be their weird religion. And that's kind of like my starting point for going, we make the assumption that the reason we do something makes total sense. And the reason other people do something is, who knows? They must just have some weird religion.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I am fascinated about the past is that there wasn't much separation between what you do and religion. Like
Mm,
the things that the science that we call today, the work that we do today, and the beliefs were pretty much woven together, which is something that when we look into ancient cultures that are still available more or less the way it was, like Tantra, for example, all the Vedanta and all the cultures, the stories about the Hindus and the Vimanas and so on,
yeah,
all
the
those
flying machines.
machinery. Yeah, those things are still embedded there. Right? There's the technology woven together with the religion.
Yeah. So can I put an asterisk on what I was saying when we
Mhm.
say like, "Oh, it must have been their religion."
Yeah,
It's with a note of denigration,
yeah,
right? Because it's not like, "Oh, well, obviously in the Middle Ages they built these cathedrals to honor God," which is, like the correct religion. It's this denigration of like they must have just been superstitious silly billies.
yeah.
Right? It's not something that so saying like it's their religion is a way of dismissing it because we don't even acknowledge, like when you learn Egyptian religion, it's like, "Oh, isn't that cute? They had all these gods and they thought they were, doing stuff."
And they look like animals.
Yes, yes. So I love thank you for bringing this up, and I just wanna
Mhm.
clarify because I think we also, we've elevated science to a dogma in our culture, so
Mhm.
you could say we have something similar going on, but that idea is not like, "Oh, it's the mystical and it's the religious and it's worth investigating." We say it's just religious the way we say it's just superstitious, is my feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of that it's because their religion wasn't based on something invisible that they had to believe. There was more of the tangible experience that they lived. And today we have some sort of that, but we're not even close to what they had in the ancient times. Um,
Can you say more about that?
yes. So I'm excited for this stuff, although there's a lot of dark stuff around that. Uh, I feel like it's a lot of that veil getting thinner and thinner and thinner because, and I want to go back to India and the cathedrals that you just mentioned because that's another point on that before coming back to the pyramids. And I'm no um, archaeologist or anything like that. I'm just someone who's really excited about this stuff. Um, so in India, they have a lot of temples that, just like you said, people go there and see. Oh, this must be some religion thing made for Shiva or made for Vishnu or made for this and that. But a lot of those temples were either universities. There is a temple there where each of the pillars make different sounds, and it's just like an amazing learning about sound, all woven in huge, huge pillars made of some sort of stone that we don't even know how to build on that precision these days. There are temples that look quite a lot like a generator of energy, and they have a lot of texts that talk about that as well. So it seems like they had electricity or something like that at a time. There's a lot of things about other past civilizations where they had like free energy and stuff like that as well. But anyway, and coming back to the cathedrals, yes, they were made for honoring God and so on, but they are also resonant chambers for healing. They
Mm.
are all the structures made in there, the mandalas, the not all cathedrals, but a lot of the cathedrals. There's a lot of people that talk about how they felt something different within those cathedrals, or if you sing within them, you can feel that resonance and so on. So there's a lot of knowledge on sound healing on those cathedrals as well, that go way beyond just like we're gonna use this for worshiping. It's really resonant healing chambers.
Yeah.
If you
Why
look
would
at
you need to go to that effort to make that complex a structure just to have a place to conduct services?
yes. And that's if you look at structured religion, that would be a good way to keep people coming back as well, because if you feel better when you go to a place, why wouldn't you go again? Right? So there's that.
Yeah.
Um
Although I would interject that at the time they were built, there was so much political power in churches as well that like you're going to keep people coming back out of pressure. You've got a stick, you don't need a carrot.
yeah, there's that. Even though a lot of those huge majestic cathedrals were made like way earlier, so they got simpler and simpler with time.
Gotcha.
So I think the first ones probably had more of that aura of mystery within them. And going back to the pyramids then, there are apocryphal texts that talk about why and how they were made. Not how they were made, but why they were made. And I think we might have some, like, I feel like it's possible that is related to that. So,
That
you're
it's
familiar
related to sound?
Not well, to sound it could be as well, but related to what's written. So you're familiar with the whole story about the Anunnakis?
It's vaguely familiar. Refresh me.
Okay, so the Anunnakis are more talked about in the Sumerian texts, where they call like the gods came to Earth and they taught us agriculture and astrology and reading this and that. Everything, that language, everything that they knew, they learned from these gods that came from the sky. That's the way it's basically written. And we know that basically agriculture, all the structure that of society the way we know these days, came from the Sumerians. Maybe there was some things earlier, but basically it's that.
And the way our history tells it, it was like, boom, just one day somebody woke up and was like, I know, why don't we plant crops instead of foraging?
Yeah.
Like it came out of nowhere. That's like the way our mainstream history describes it. There was foraging and hunting and gathering, and then all of a sudden there was agriculture out of nowhere. Yeah. So they have no explanation for how these ideas developed. We don't see a precursor to it.
And they discount the texts from the Sumerians that says that Anunnaki came and gave it to them, which was basically the gods from the sky, Anunnaki. Mm-hmm. And the Hindu texts also talking about these gods that came in Vimanas from the sky, and all these other texts that basically tell the same thing. But that's not God, the creator, the way we imagine, like someone who's formless, who's infinite, who has like infinite potential, like bigger than anything that we can imagine. That would be higher dimension creatures, or you could say aliens, or you could say someone who came from another planet. All these possibilities are open.
Yeah.
Or maybe all of them are the same. But the thing that is coming, and I heard from people that I trust that are doing their research, is that it's very possible that the pyramids were made to be that portal to bring those creatures in.
Mm. They're certainly pointing very at very specific places in the cosmos. They're like signals.
It's basically an airport.
Yeah. Yeah, with a landing strip. And then kind of circling back to, I mean, this is a little bit of a tangent, but maybe you'll bring some things together. The little bit I know about the Egyptian religion, it's all to do with the stars and the things that Christianity then borrowed, right? This idea of like the fishermen and the sun returning. You're like, you're describing celestial movements. It always cracks me up when people are like, I can't believe in astrology. I'm Christian. I'm like, your whole religion is based on astrology, dude. It's like the metaphor, or the thing in the sky became the metaphor, became the tangible story. And like it's like fractals, right? And the same themes are emerging in different ways, which I think is like how we're always getting the message, right? Or how the message is always trying to get to us. It's like, okay, let me present it one more way, maybe you can understand it this way. But the combination of the religion with the technology is like something really important is happening, coming from the heavens, coming from the sky, right? So let's ground these teachings and this wisdom in something we can pass on, and that becomes religion, and that becomes the mythology. And then enough time passes and there's the separation, and we look at it and go, oh, those are just cute stories. Those are just cute stories, as opposed to that is the shorthand. That's the signifier of this bigger thing that happened, but it's easier to pass along. Like if you are doing a talk and you make a PowerPoint and you don't write out all the text, you just write like the one thing, or you have the one image that's going to unlock all of the things that you want to say, right? That's what our mythology is. It's these little nuggets that get like, if you just pass on this, then people will know the whole story, but we lost somehow that. So this idea of, and I think this all ties back to, we continually make the assumption that other people are not motivated by the same things we are, that they are, I mean, maybe this is kind of an innocuous example where we're like, oh, they just did it because they were silly and they believed in fairy tales. But then there are much more dangerous assumptions we make. We're like, people are doing that because they're just evil, because they're just filled with hate, right? Like,
something fell here.
Oh goodness. Weird. Are you okay?
Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, it was just weird.
It was like, as soon as I said some people are filled with hate, Spirit was like, no.
Yeah.
Let me interject on that. Weird. Yeah. But how can we even begin to understand our own history as a species, and then maybe a history where our species is connecting with other kinds of beings, other species, other, people from other dimensions? It's interesting how like being from another planet, people would be like, okay, that makes sense. But being from another dimension, they're like, no, I can't. It's really just a different place. But how can we begin to understand our own history and operate even in the present if we're not even willing to make the assumption that other people are motivated by the same things we're motivated by? And we just dismiss them, whether we're saying like, oh, we do this all the time. Like, as you were saying, the Sumerians and in Hindu texts, there's these descriptions, like the descriptions of the Vimana are very clear. It's not it doesn't sound like a metaphor. It doesn't sound like
No.
somebody making an analogy. It's like there's this machine in the sky. It's got this fire coming out of it. It's doing this stuff. And we go, we have to assume that's a metaphor. We have to assume that's a myth. And here's what it comes down to. If we don't do that, we can't hold on to the assumption that we are the pinnacle. I mean, like so much of this bullshit and disregard for evidence that you see in archaeology is based on our assumption that we're the pinnacle and that no one before us could possibly have had more advanced technology, more advanced social structures.
That's an insight for me. The assumption that we are the pinnacle. Because
it's all been leading up to us.
Yes. If you think in a smaller scheme, it's the same thing that children and teens have about their parents and their grandpas. Like, oh, they were so outdated.
Yeah. You guys don't understand what it's like to be me. I'm the only one who's ever felt this angst before.
Yeah, they don't even know how to use a cell phone, but they knew how to make fire and to survive very cold winters without having all the technology that we have now, which a kid from today wouldn't even like live a day, I guess. But they know how to use the phone.
Why isn't DoorDash coming? What do you mean there's a
famine? So if we think how values shifted in such a short period of time and how we tend to think that, oh, this is what I'm living now, it's the biggest thing on earth.
Yeah.
It's very likely that they were way more advanced than we can even imagine, and we don't have the level of consciousness to understand. And thinking of what we're talking about, the why we do what we do and so on, with that idea of level of consciousness, there were some papers from documents from the CIA that were released. I think it wasn't just now, it was a little bit earlier, but I saw some news around that just recently, about CIA having found, is it correct?
Yeah.
The, how's it called? Is it Alien's Arch? Where the Ten Commandments would be.
Oh, the Ark of the Covenant?
Ark of the Covenant. Yes, I was trying to translate from Portuguese, and it's the Ark of the Covenant. Somewhere, I can't remember exactly where it was now, but that's not the point. But yeah, they have found the document talked about. They have found it, but it was protected by beings from another dimension. And the way they found it was through remote viewing. So the news was talking about how it was so unconventional that it was questioning CIA value. And I was reading that and thinking, people are not ready.
That is so cool. So let's just fill in some things. There is tons and tons of documented evidence about the CIA's explorations with remote viewing. There was that movie Men Who Stare at Goats or something like that, which is based on actual events. Remote viewing,
which is super fun.
Any kind of like ESP or psychic phenomenon. They did so many like really heinous studies with psychedelics where, they were looking for that mind control thing. So there's this acknowledgement at the highest level of powers that there are these other realms. And then there's a denial in the mainstream culture. And this brings us, I think, really beautifully back to the idea that the technology and the religion were not separate in ancient times. And I would posit that the same is true now, except there is a massive effort to discredit and dismiss the mystical elements so that, it's like we've got this, like people in power know they have, or they're like on the verge of having access to really big power, but the way they're going to hold on to it is to tell everybody else it doesn't exist, so nobody else will try to use it, and they will have a monopoly on it. But I'm always interested when stuff like this is kind of hidden in plain sight in mainstream culture. So I always think of the movie Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? And the movie is essentially about the Third Reich, the Nazi Party, trying to gather these like talismans, these things of power from various cultures, which they did. Like, this is documented. They went and stole like a bunch of stuff that was kind of like magically imbued. Even the swastika itself is a bastardized swan. Is it called a swansea? Is that what it's the
I think, yeah, I think that's the.
So they're taking these symbols, they're taking these objects that people really believe are powerful, and they're collecting them. And of course, in the plot of Raiders of the Lost Ark, they want to find the Ark of the Covenant, and that will give them ultimate power. And I look at things like that are big Hollywood production with, it's fantasy and, train chases and all this kind of stuff. But what if that is just the best way to make people not believe in something, is to put it forward as fantastical fiction?
Yes.
Meanwhile, the folks behind the scenes, yeah. And even some of like the really horrific things that were revealed about high up politicians and their connections to Jeffrey Epstein, and, like the Clintons going out to, the island where it's like awful, child sex trafficking kind of stuff that's documented, but, brushed under the rug. I hear that and I'm like, there's something there where people are trying to take the energy and the life force of children. And that is mystical. I mean, it's very dark. It's a kind of vampirism, right? But I don't think it's just about like a sexual drive. I think there's something there where they're literally trying to absorb the life force. And some of the descriptions and like the artwork that Epstein had, you're like, this is very, like, this is full of symbolism and things that are significant. It's not just a sexual appetite that has no regard for somebody else's autonomy. So I feel like we're back to the religion is baked into the technology, but now it's hidden. Maybe it was hidden before too. I don't know, but it's certainly hidden now.
Yeah. And the thing is, a lot of that in the past was something that if we looked at it today, we would call probably cults or something like that. Because there was a lot of sacrifice. There was a lot of the things that we think, oh, today we don't have it, but it's hidden under the surface, right?
Yeah.
And there's that other possibility that I think it's not just possibility, I think it's real. That the Anunnaki, I mentioned that it wasn't they weren't the creator that we mentioned, but the possibility is that what we call fallen angels or demons, it's them.
So that's super interesting. So I shared with you that episode of the Aubrey Marcus podcast that was about how like the driving force of the whole cosmos is eros, is love, is attraction.
Yes.
And he's talking about and now I've forgotten the name of the guest, which is terrible because he's the one putting forth the
There
idea.
was something about the eros being the same word for obligated as well. I don't know if it's the same thing that you Yeah,
Oh,
in Hebrew
oh,
is the same word for obligated.
oh, interesting. Oh, that puts a whole different level to
Yeah.
it. But this idea that like, even atoms come together in molecules, like everything that it is so the premise or the postulate is that love, desire, eros, is a fundamental field and force in the universe, the way gravity is, the way
Yeah.
electricity is, nuclear force, strong force, weak force, all of those major forces that we think of.
Which
And
is the force of the day that we are today, by the way.
wait, say
Friday.
again.
Which is the force of the day that we are today. Friday is the Venus day. Is that, yeah.
Oh, yes, very cool.
We are in Arrows day.
And what I thought was really helpful about that way of understanding the universe is that we all are in relationship to love and desire in some way. And we can be in relationship to it by going like, ah, I love you. And that makes me like forget my own needs and just like want your happiness, right? Or I can be relating to love where like I don't feel loved and I feel alone and empty, but I want love, and so I will destroy anyone and everyone in an effort to get it. And specifically they talked about the concept of like fallen angels and demons, and is it Ahura Mazda in Zoroastrianism, who's the bad guy, the anyway, so like
Yeah, I don't know the names in Zua. Yeah, but
yeah, so it's, and forgive me if I'm getting it wrong, but like in any in any tradition where there's like the people, the beings who have fallen, who are separate, even they want that reunification.
yeah.
And so they're like, well, I'll just destroy the whole world to get it, because if I destroy everything, we're back to void, and then I can come back to the unification. So it's like, oh, this game's not going my way. I'm just gonna unplug it and restart it, or hit the reset button. And I found that such a helpful way to understand, you know, instead of the assumption, well, people are just doing that because they're evil, or that person's acting that way because they're just full of hate. You're like, really? You think that guy just wakes up in the morning and goes, how can I be hateful today? Let me see who's on my agenda. Like, do people don't operate that way? Everybody is operating the same way I'm operating. It's like we disagree about what is the way to get there, what's expedient. We're bogged down by our baggage, by our hurts, by our wounds that make us do things that really don't make sense, that push people away even more. Sure, we're complex. But this for me was such a helpful way to go like, there's really good reason to assume that everyone, even the demons, everyone is operating in relation to love, to desire, to eros. And it's then whether like I'm kind of which polarity I'm on. But what they ended up talking about was like nobody's left out.
Yeah.
There's nobody who's like, and you're just not in this love field. It's like everybody's in this love field, and we have to like have a concept of forgiveness. But I thought that put an interesting point on it, because if it's those fallen angels, those demons who brought us the current technology and wisdom, like are we on a path of the perversion of eros?
That would be the explanation of why um, Christianity demonizes astrology and a lot of the things, but they don't demonize like agriculture, right? Because those teachings came in this way. Um, but also, and there's a lot of, uh, yeah, there's a lot of mythology around that as well. Like I'm trying to remember which one was. You probably remember what is it? Prometheus or?
Prometheus who brought fire. Yeah.
Yeah, who brought fire from the
Stole
gods.
fire from the gods and brought it
Yeah.
to people.
Yeah, there's a lot of this mythology that come from these ancient stories that apparently a lot of those were true. um but at the end, maybe the reason why we do what we do, it's because we have these two sides in us.
Mm.
We maybe we came from a creator that is all omnipotent and perfect and made that image of God. But in ancient times, we merged with these fallen angels that they taught us a lot and they wanted to do things in their way. And it wasn't exactly what the plan didn't come in the way that it was planned. Apparently, things got out of the way. And now we're here with these two sides within us. We have light and we have shadow. And the evil, the enemy and so on is not outside of us. It's within. And in why we do each thing is based on how much we can connect with our divine fire within us and really see what is the best and right action and what will bring growth and good things, and be able to work through and avoid the things that would bring hurt just because we feel like we're not worthy of love, or that we weren't accepted, or that someone hurt us, so we're gonna hurt back.
Yeah. The tools and the technology are accelerants, aren't they? I mean, we live on a polarity planet. Like we've probably always contained this polarity, even the initial separation, right? If everything is one consciousness, the initial separation is already like, I'm already full of loss. I'm already full of longing. Like I would just want to go back to that oneness. But these technologies we received, in whatever way we receive them, are powerful accelerations, which maybe means like we're given them to kind of intensify the polarity so that we can like see it and figure out what we want to do about it. We learned to split atoms. Are we going to use that to bomb the hell out of each other, or are we going to use that to, give electricity to the entire world in an efficient way?
That's a huge point.
Right? Yeah. So for me, it feels like we've always been this way, and yet the delivery of the technology is fanning the flames and going like, it's time for you to become conscious of your power and decide what you want to do with it. And then, the figure of Prometheus bringing fire, who is always usually portrayed as somebody positive, or the the snake with the apple who's not portrayed as positive. Like they're all just taking on the form of, here's a tool, and now you're going to have to decide what to do with it and who you are, because this is power. We're going to give you this power, and what are you going to do with it? Are you going to use sound as healing, or are you going to make sound weapons that, by the way, the US military is currently testing in our frickin' oceans and is killing off whales and, like all the life? Like, whoa, not the right use of sound.
No.
Not
That's the idea.
Yeah. So for me, a big insight is we're being called, like, this, for me, this history of like, where did these technologies come from, in agriculture, in the pyramids, and all of these mysteries. And like now, our my government, several governments have admitted to finding extraterrestrial craft. And what you were saying about the Ark of the Covenant is like, that blows my mind. We are being given this technology to call us to action in our journey, and ask, will I use this for love? Will I operate on?
Mm. Yes. And I feel like it's on my insight as well that it's calling us to come back to consciousness, because just like what you said in there, that uh, about us thinking that we are the epitome of everything, and we are the highest advanced civilization and so on. I think it's this year is calling us to open our eyes and see that there's a lot more to human history than what it was told. That the things that most people might laugh thinking that, oh, that's pseudoscience, that's not real, that doesn't exist, that's fantasy and so on, it's probably more true than most of what you believe.
Yeah.
And it's not to be like believing in anything, because especially in an age of artificial intelligence and so on, there will be a lot of things that it's made up and we can't believe. So it's really a calling to be more conscious and more aware, to use our intuition to see what is true in the middle of all the chaos.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I really like that. So my insight action related to that is to be paying attention to when I'm being dismissive.
Mm.
When I hear something and then I immediately, oh, it just can't be. And some of it's going to be based on assumption, right? Like, oh, those people are just doing that because they're evil and terrible. They're, like, their motivations are totally different from mine. Like, oh, that's me dismissing something, not from a place of discernment, but from a place of fear of the other, or like not opening my heart
Yes.
to, like, what would be the reason I would do something like that?
I love that question. I'm gonna go with the same questions that you're bringing, because that's what this is all about.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. It's so, like, I love there are all of these mysteries. I love that I'm alive at this time. What a cool time to be alive.
Yeah. I think we're going to discover a lot of things in the next years, and it might be terrifying, but we subscribe for it.
It'll be less terrifying if we ask, why would I have done something like that?
Yeah.
And could there be a motivation there that's about love?
Getting curious.
Yeah. Well, I'm very curious to hear yeah, what this brings up. So let us know in the comments.
Yeah. And until next time, take care. It's 2:22 in here, so
I love it.
Just have to say this.
All right. Stay insightful.
Yeah.